One of the biggest challenges for training AI models is going to be the availability of data. So as you can imagine, a lot of the current AI models are scraping the internet, taking as much digital information that we as humans have created throughout history. What's going to happen is twofold. One is it's going to consume everything, and then it's just going to look for more and more new data. So, it's going to use data that's probably not as good quality. So once it's used potentially all the academic or the official sort of type data, and currently they're using a lot of sort of social media user-generated information. Okay, it's going to consume all of that, so it's going to require more and more creation of data by humans. Now, one of the issues of creation of data by humans is that now humans are creating content using AI. So what's going to happen is that AI is not only going to be consuming content that originates from humans, but it's also going to consume content that's originated from other AI systems or even itself. So why is this a problem? Well, there are a whole range of issues with this, but I want to pick up on three core issues that will become a big problem. The first one, which any sort of, not even in AI, in machine learning, is called bias amplification. Now, what happens is if that your original data set is biased, then if you use AI to do something, so for example, let's say we take a field where it's heavily skewed towards men working in that field, okay? So you're looking for who is, what are the kind of thinking or kind of problem solving or whatever in this field. Now, because there are more men in this field than there are women, a lot of the content will be generated by men. Therefore, it will reflect how men think around things, how they problem solve. So therefore, the AI, when you ask it questions around how do you solve something in this field, it's using data that's been generated predominantly by men to come up with the answers. Now, what happens then is that the new AI that consumes new information will include information from other AI systems that's already biased because it's built on biased data, and therefore it amplifies that bias. Okay, so that's going to be one key issue, that the problem's going to be that biases will become hugely amplified because it becomes like an echo chamber for AI, that they start learning from themselves, and what they know is what they know, and so therefore they just repeat that, or they replicate that type of thinking or that kind of analysis. I mean, essentially AIs are just pattern recognition, pattern production systems, and so what they're going to be doing is they're looking at pattern. If that pattern is biased, they're going to replicate that bias and maybe even more amplify it. And then what will happen is that unless someone corrects the bias by doing some kind of calibration, then what you're going to end up with is just bias system. Following on from bias is going to be a loss of diversity. So if you think about, let's take stories as an example. If you train your model on how stories are written, okay, so it reads, let's say, all of the books that are out there, then what's going to happen is that when you ask it to generate a story, it's got a bank of patterns around how stories are written, and it will replicate that pattern again, and therefore you won't really get new sort of ideas, new thinking in storytelling. It will sort of replicate the historical sort of ways of writing story, and you lose diversity. And if you imagine, if you're in a marketing space or if you're in any kind of content creation space, if you're using AI to generate content, it's using information that it already has created or is already embedded in its system, and recognize the patterns for how that content is created, and then just regurgitates that information. So therefore what will happen is that, let's say marketing again, you're creating content in marketing for digital campaigns, you'll find that they're very similar. Okay, now one of the issues for that is because humans also have become less diverse. We measure things, we know how things perform because that's how people respond, and therefore we sort of end up doing very similar things. So the AI will just pick up on that, doing very similar things and just replicate it, and we could end up in a scenario where there's very low diversity or lack of diversity in many fields. Another challenge which I've just read about is something called model collapse. Okay, so what happens is that when you train a model on other AI data, okay, you're going to end up with model collapse, which means that what you're essentially doing is getting a photocopy of a photocopy, and you just keep repeating. So you take the copy, you photocopy it, you take the copy and you photocopy it, and you get a degradation of the actual quality of output, because what the model is doing is all the things that I talked about, amplification of bias, lack of diversity. But also what happens is that the model becomes less and less useful, because what it's doing is it's just training itself on itself. And so what you end up with is that future models which may have more AI content in its training data set than actual human content becomes less useful for us in terms of operating or in terms of creating anything new. What does this mean? Well, essentially it means that people in the AI space will have a job for a long time, because what they're going to have to do is oversee these models, correct these models. They're going to even have to curate what the model gets to see in its training data. And so what happens is that even though we have AI, to get to an automation of AI working independently, there's a long time before that happens, because we'll always need human oversight. So we'll need people looking over these models, looking over the training data sets, and even looking over the outputs that these models create and start curating it. It will also mean that people who are very good at creating original content may have a good career still, because those kind of information will be hugely in demand. So you can imagine if there's a social platform where there's an AI or there's a tool that can detect AI input, so therefore you can only put content into this platform if it's original, if it's from your original thinking, then those kind of platforms will be very valuable for AI models, because it picks up new sort of content, new types of thinking, and sort of innovation, I guess, in that space, and especially in terms of data. Now, the alternative is that we all just get plugged into the matrix, okay? So the AI just feeds off our imagination, feeds off our dreams, and creates its models based on that, because it is learning off the original source, which is humans and the way humans think. So until we get to that scenario where we are all plugged into the matrix and feeding the matrix all of our thoughts and feelings and emotions and dreams, then it's always going to be a human in the process, and also there's going to be a lot of value around original content. Well, I hope you found that video useful. One of the things I am seeing is that a lot of sort of data analysts, data scientists are getting very worried that AI will take over their roles. Now, as I mentioned, there are some limitations of AI, which will always mean that you'll need people in the process, and that's also true in the data analytics space. The other thing that will become more evident is it will differentiate between the good data analysts and data scientists and the average ones, because what you'll see in any career is that people get comfortable and they just repeat what they do. Now, if you repeat what you do, then AI can do what you do. So unless you're always challenging yourself, or unless you're always challenging the business, unless you're always adding value, being innovative, and pushing boundaries, then you won't actually have much value in the business and can be replicated by AI systems. Please do like and share the video. And for those of you who don't subscribe to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel. Thank you.